Well, you might have seen my pregame show earlier this week on OU versus Texas and my closing statement. What I said was, don't expect 55-17 Oklahoma. And as it turned out, I was wrong. I was wrong because it turned out to be an even bigger margin of victory for Oklahoma than that. The most optimistic Oklahoma Sooner fan probably would have said OU wins today by 17 or 20 points at the most. If you watch the first half of this game, if you're a Texas fan, God love you if you did, complete domination on both sides of the ball. This game, I know a lot of people are going to be saying, well, Texas didn't play well. They stink and all this other stuff. To me, this was more about what Oklahoma did rather than what Texas did not do. Oklahoma came into this game extremely focused, extremely well prepared, and from the kickoff, absolutely took control of this ball game. First drive, touchdown. And then to me, if there was one play that was indicative of the entire game, it was later on in the first quarter, 62 OU with the ball deep in their own end at about the 5-yard line, and OU just a few feet away from their own end zone, and those Texas fans, the band right behind them making a lot of noise. The play where we saw Williams with that incredible run for a touchdown. Oklahoma caught Texas in an outside blitz, and then the rest was history after that. "95 yards later, OU led 13-2, and then it was history after that. Both sides of the ball, this Oklahoma team looked like a top 5 team in the country. They looked like they could play with anybody in the country today. Yes, Texas did not come with their A game, and Texas had some injury issues. I know that Malcolm Brown on the offensive side didn't play, and Jordan Hicks, who we thought was going to play, but OrangeBloods.com reported prior to today that Hicks, their starting linebacker, again would be missing some time because of a growing injury. Well, those guys could have played today and it wouldn't have made a difference because this was about a team offensively and defensively that came in focused and ready to play. And, Hicks could have played today, and it wouldn't have made much of a difference on the scoreboard. It wouldn't have made much of a difference in terms of how many plays Oklahoma ran in that first half, which was a little over 50, and how many Texas ran in the first half, which was 23. Time of possession, Oklahoma. Ball control, Oklahoma. If you look at Texas in terms of their offense, the first 3 series were 3 and outs. Texas's defense could not get off the field. For the Longhorns, no question, their defense has been a big disappointment this year. Pass defense has been exploited, but today their run defense gave up a lot as well. And again, they've had injuries to deal with, I understand, but still, we heard so much about how good the defense was last year, top defense in the Big 12, one of the top defenses in the country. But today, no matter what the Texas defense tried to do against Oklahoma, and for that matter, no matter what the Texas offense tried to do against Oklahoma, the Sooners simply said, we will have an answer for whatever you try to do. And at halftime, it was already decided. Fans from Texas, as a matter of fact, at that point, were already leaving and checking out the Texas State Fair. At that point, probably eating a corn dog or cotton candy would have been a lot more interesting and fun than watching their team really get dominated in the first half and throughout the game for that matter. So you have to give it up to the Sooners. In terms of the national picture, as far as the BCS standings, which will come out soon, I'm not really prepared to talk about that at the moment. But there's no question that the Sooners today made a big statement, and you can't do anything about the Kansas State game, OU fans. That was a game where K-State deserved to win. OU committed turnovers. OU didn't make the plays in the fourth quarter of that game, but you can't do anything about it. All you could do is take care of the opponent that you face, and that's what they did last week against Texas Tech, and that's exactly what they did in a dominating fashion today over the Longhorns. And by the way, congratulations to Landry Jones, whom today became Oklahoma's all-time winningest quarterback. And by the way, a perfect 3-0 as a starter against Texas. 2 years ago, the drama game 28-20. Last year, a blowout 55-17. And this year, blowout. Key number one, giving Landry time to throw. Protection, A+ in this department. Lane Johnson, as well as Darrell Williams, the outside tackles, did a monster job today against Texas's monster defensive ends. You've heard of them, Jackson Jeffcoat and Alex Okafor. Today, as far as pass rush, they could not get to Landry Jones. Terrific job by Johnson as well as by Williams in giving Landry enough time to throw. And good job to all those offensive linemen today. Landry had plenty of time to throw today, and he took Texas apart. So A+ for OU in this key. Key number two, contain the Texas ground attack. Another A+. It didn't matter who was running the ball. It didn't matter if it was a Wildcat formation, whether they had Gray back there, whether they had Bergeron. It didn't matter who Texas had running the ball or if it was David Ash. The Sooner front seven was on the money. Good bounce-back game for Tom Ward. I know that he's gotten a lot of criticism. Heck, I've even criticized him a few times on my show, but today he ended up making some plays. As a matter of fact, he even forced a fumble in this contest. So the Texas ground game is something that they have improved greatly on, and something that Matt Brown has always stretched since Brian Harson's been offensive coordinator. They've wanted to be a in-your-face, ground-pounding type of game, but today the ground game wasn't established, and therefore it made it a very hard day for David Ash to throw the football. So you got to give it up to the Oklahoma defense. They were able to shut down Texas' run attack. In fact, Texas today, I think, had just barely over 200 yards of total offense. So, outstanding job by the Sooner defense. Best game that they have played in a long time. Key number three, avoid self-affliction if you're OU. I'm going to go A in this department. Now, I know that Landry Jones threw an interception that got run back for a touchdown. You know, who cares? It was 36-2 OU at the time. Made it 36-8. Didn't matter. OU resumed scoring points after that. OU stayed away from the mistakes, stayed away from the turnovers, except for that one play we just talked about, and they limited the penalties as well. The Sooners were so fundamentally sound today, it wasn't even funny. So an A for the Sooners in that department. Key four, as far as the magic kick, would it come down to a final kick? Who would come through? This is obviously is an incomplete for an I, and that's because it didn't come down to anything at all. The game was decided well before halftime, so we go incomplete on the special teams. So for the Texas Longhorns, in the past though, in the past, Matt Brown teams have responded after the Oklahoma game. Even if they lost to Oklahoma, which they've now lost 8 times out of the last 13 to the Sooners, they typically have responded to this ball game, whether it was a win or a loss. They typically play well the second half of the season under Matt Brown. Well, now you're coming off a blowout loss, second time in a row that you've gotten blown out by the Sooners, and now you enter the rest of the season banged up. I mean, you already had some injuries. David Ash, I think in the fourth quarter, might have had a wrist or hand injury of some kind. Didn't play the rest of the game. Case McCoy came in, and I think Texas had some other injuries. I know a player from Texas got carted off the field. You hope he's okay. So they're going to enter the rest of the season banged up. We'll see how this Texas team responds. And for the Longhorns, this is another offense that's absolutely torched them. The third week in a row, they've had some issues against Big 12 offenses. Oklahoma State, West Virginia, and the loss last week, now Oklahoma. And they play Baylor, and Baylor's offense is just as potent as those previous 3 I mentioned. So it doesn't get easier for the Longhorns. For the Oklahoma Sooners, there's no way in the world they're going to get fired up to play Kansas at home next week. I would expect a letdown, but Kansas is so bad, especially on defense, it shouldn't matter a whole heck of a lot. And then, of course, in 2 weeks, the game against Notre Dame in Norman, and boy, will that be a game of big-time national significance. But that's in 2 weeks. OU hosts Kansas on October the 20th. Oklahoma, so proud of you today. Offensively, defensively, skilled players, linemen, my goodness, what an effort today. And I know a lot of individuals today did some terrific things, okay? Again, the defensive front from Oklahoma, R.J. Washington, David King, Jamarcus McFarland playing big again. The secondary, you give it up to those guys as well for the game that they put in today. And offensively, lots of receivers got some action today. And we saw Justin Brown. He had a marvelous game for the Sooners. Jalen Saunders, the transfer from Fresno State, he was eligible to play this week, cleared by the NCAA, and he made some impactful plays as well. To me, though, the MVP of this game, if you had to make one guy the MVP for Oklahoma, number 33, Trey Millard. Blocked like a madman, ran like a madman, caught the ball like Lynn Swann. He was tremendous, very athletic. He had over 100 yards of receiving. Trey Millard, Oklahoma. I'll tell you what, Oklahoma, use this guy as often as you can. He needs to get more touches because today Texas couldn't stop him. So for the Sooners, convincing win today. A reminder, my weekly matchup show will be released probably on October the 16th on a Tuesday when we'll talk about OU and the Kansas Jayhawks. Congrats to OU for another win in the Red River Rivalry. Now 3 in a row over Texas. Boomer Sooner.